Everybody ready? Yeah. All right, start the meeting. Call the meeting to order. Monday, March 11th. We'll start with the pledge. All right, we have a public hearing for food truck application renewal, Cheryl Spofford of Sprinkles Ice Cream Truck. Any questions, comments, or concerns from the public or the board? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Approval of the agenda. Any committee reports, board reports?
I have one addition I'd like to put on, some discussion on, issue we have at the transfer station.
Under business or under your report?
We can put it under manager's report or business, either or.
I did attend the school board meeting, but I left everything home.
Perfect. Public forum. Any non-agenda items?
Diane Robbins Mokus, Town of Arundel. You mentioned it. I was going to bring it up anyway. I pulled the deeds. But it was, I pulled them because there was something in front of the planning board that said draft deed by applicant's attorney Clearview Drive right away per consent decree from 1995 to be submitted by attorney under separate cover. Because it didn't appear that when I was here the last time that you guys were aware that that had been submitted. Well, it's dated January 12th, 2024. I believe it shows up under the January 20th meeting. But there doesn't seem to be any date stamp as to when those were received, and I haven't talked to the office yet to find out when they get them. But when I did look up his deed, the prior deed appeared to have some language about the consent decree. But the current deed didn't have that language in it. So that'll be for the attorneys to hash out, because from what I could see, there's nothing in any of the drawings for Clearview Estates that shows a 60-foot right of way in between anything. And it has clear documentation, as most of you have been on the planning board. There's supposed to be documentation of rights of way and easements, so on and so forth. But this was very interesting because this was from, at our time, this was from June 30th of 1994. And this was sent to William Caney. He must have been the attorney for Du Bois. And this was sent by Milda Kasner. And it said right away, presently the town is a free interest in the right of way shown on the plans as approved, and the pavement on one side of the road and, as approved and recorded. The town will not agree to allow Marcel to remove the pavement on one side of the road and add it to the other side. This proposal is not practical and will cause problems with maintaining the road in the future where the old pavement and new pavement are joined. The town would prefer to leave the existing pavement where it is and to convey additional land by easement where necessary to accommodate the drainage ditches on each side of the paved way. The town will release its interest in any extra land which is not needed in those portions along lots 12, 13, 36, and 37, where the right-of-way is enlarged on the other side of the existing paved road. I realize that an additional deed to the town will be required. There is, on record, at the registry, your consent decree detailing the pieces of land that were supposed to be conveyed. the loss of square footage from lot 54 might be recovered from property from lot 52, which appears to be well over the minimum lot size for these lots. At this stage, it would seem that an actual sketch by the surveyor showing distances, existing paved roads, and ditches might help this issue to a final agreement. As far as the cul-de-sac is concerned, its existence is not mandatory, but frontage on a 50-foot right-of-way and setback requirements will have to be satisfied. Again, perhaps Paul Godboys could show this proposal on the plan so that we can more precisely analyze whether it's feasible. The abandonment of the cul-de-sac will require town meeting approval. So that came from our attorney. So I was not wrong when I said that because it was town road, that would have to go back in front of the members of this town. And that's from our attorney. So that was from Milda. So there's no doubt in my mind that if they want to do anything to that road, come in through Clearview, that would have to go to town meeting. Special town meeting, regular town meeting, I don't care which one. But it appears to me that would have to go. And that is if he indeed does have a 60-foot right-of-way between the two properties, because the way it's worded, it could be read as between the two or along the two. And it would make sense because it goes through their property and up to his in that circle. So I'm going to leave that to the attorneys to determine what to do about that piece. But as far as the road goes, that's been accepted by the town. And I would hope that as the selectman, you would uphold what Milda had said back to Mr. Dubois, because no one should be treated any different. So if Mr. Dubois would have to bring that back to town meeting to have that changed, then I would expect that any other developer or anybody else that wants to go in through that road should have to bring that back to town meeting.
Yeah, where did you get some idea that we would do anything other than?
No, I'm just saying, because
I know.
We know how it works.
when I mentioned it the last time, there was no one said, yes, Diane, you're right, that would have to be. You did agree that it was a town road. But when I said that I would expect that would have to go back through town meeting, there was no response. I'm just reiterating what I found and what Milda had said about the road. I'm also a little confused because the planning board has done a lot of work on this. When I looked at the plans that are going to the next planning board meeting, there's a whole road with that circle and a road coming up through it and everything. So it's being sent to the planning board.
If the right tenant's application looked at, and it may be rejected.
Yes, but I think everybody also has the right to understand, because when we asked the planner what the issues were, we got, there are too many, you have to go look at the files. He knew because he had had a discussion with them. It's documented. He got paperwork. It's dated January 2nd. I suspect they got it before that meeting. My concern is that the planner was talking to him about hammerheads, changing the road. Sorry, but that's not an appropriate discussion from the planning board because they don't own the road and they don't have any jurisdiction over what happens to a town road. That has to come back through you.
But they can request changes and then it comes to vote. I mean, they're within their legal right to make changes or to request changes. Doesn't mean it's going to get approved, but they are 100% within their legal right
Is
to
that
make
supposed
changes.
to come from the planning board or is that supposed to come from the developer?
It can come from the developer or the planning board.
Most often, operation,
Right.
developer, planning, entity, whatever, the planning board that are, say, problems or not. And maybe you can't, you probably, we know we cannot convey in town property, only the voters.
Right.
Yes.
We know that.
And my concern is they were not upfront. did not tell us that he was working on a deed. I don't even know why he's working on the deed. The deed should be coming and being checked by our attorney. So when I look at this from the outside, someone that just came into the public hearing, and I see what's transpiring, and then I pull 30 some odd pages of documents, I had my own questions about what we were doing. And I have some questions, and I'm gonna be quite frank, I have some questions about the planner and the interaction. Because my feeling is, there's no subdivision if you don't have a road. You need to clarify that road before you get too far, and why are we expending all of our planning board time on a subdivision that right now doesn't have a clear road? Because it's town road.
Certainly make a condition of the approval, it's gotta do X, whatever it might be. Okay, if it doesn't do it, it doesn't get approval.
But that, right, but what they said to these people that night was that they could do all of their things and they could do their approval. But then they had to come back and ask other questions to you guys about who was gonna give that permit out. He can get approval to do the development, but you can't do the development if you don't have a road. So who's gonna give him a permit?
Fine.
And and this is where this is why I'm telling you, there is a disconnect when it comes to dealing with the people that are asking questions from the planning board. And I'm sorry, but this planning board seemed pretty biased, and I don't like it when I come across a board that seems to be biased. More so when I go to the next meeting and I just want to ask questions about some land use regulations, and they flatly tell me that I can't even ask a question. So I'm very concerned about how this board is operating. I'm concerned about how the planner is operating within the board. The only avenue that I have right now, because half the time I can't even talk to the planning board. They won't recognize me, won't let me ask a question. So the only way that I can bring these issues up is to bring them to you, because that board reports to you. Do I question that you guys did anything wrong? No. I'm just telling you that I found information that states exactly as I stated to you, and that is that this is a town road, and that in order to change that town road, it would have to go to town meeting. And that's pretty clear to me. I didn't have anything in writing when I came and talked to you the last time. I wanted you to know I found it in writing. I'm not questioning what you do. I'm questioning that there seems to be a disconnect, and I don't like it when we have a disconnect. I've worked with the planning board for years. Dan was sitting on the planning board when we did the seasonal cottages. Good gravy, we spent more nights on that, in that room than I think I spent at home. But it was a collaborative effort, and people were allowed to ask questions. And I don't feel that that's how this board is working, not this board. I don't feel this is how the planning board or the planner is working, because they sent questions to him and they got no response. So it's a concern. I'm not going to let it go. You guys know I don't. And I will support them in their endeavors. And everything that I pulled is going to go to their attorney. But I wanted you to know what I found about the road. You didn't say that it wasn't going to be that process. That was not my indication. I wanted you to know that I found from our attorney that said this was a process that had to take place. If you want to touch that road, you want to do anything to that road, it has to go to town meeting. That did not get brought up at the public hearing when the road became, you that live in Clearview have to get your attorney to go fight this. The problem is there are several parties. The road doesn't really belong to those residents anymore. It belongs to the town. That gets complicated. So you're telling them to go find an attorney to go fight this when the road belongs to the town. That's my issue. And my issue is that the way that they act when you show up at a meeting and you want to ask hard questions. Sorry, You guys have never shut me down. You've never told me you wouldn't answer a question of mine. You might not like it. You might not like having to apologize for doing something that you didn't do on purpose, but it happened. But that doesn't happen with this other board, and that concerns me.
Thank you, Diane. All right, moving on. Approve the minutes, February 26th. Public forum, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to follow up in February. It was kind of chaotic. But I know there were some questions about the truck committee, the bids, the RFP for the pumper tanker, proposed pumper tanker. All the bids came in. We've got to the point that all the bids are within $30,000 at this point in time. We've made a decision. It'll go to the budget board tomorrow night. Some other things that are occurring, there's new OSHA requirements coming out for firefighters. We've already started, part of that is physical screenings. We worked with Workwell right here in Biddeford to establish that relationship. The NFPA requirements already set forth, they know what it is, so all new employees and current employees are getting annual physicals. And screenings. There'll be mental health screenings. That's to be determined who we go with for that. So that's coming down the road. It came to a shock to us as of January 31st. So all the chiefs, we didn't know about it. It was kind of on the back burner and it just got presented to us. So there's a 90-day opening period for this new OSHA requirement that probably most of it's going to be accepted by Maine BLS. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit with this.
What's the cost of those screenings?
It varies depending on it. There's certain criteria which may require additional tests. But a typical one is about $200 per employee.
So are you doing some of those screenings now?
Yes, they've already
So
started.
you've got room in your budget to do that?
We're gonna do half to 2/3 under this budget, and we'll finish them up under next budget.
I think in the warrant that you're approving tonight, I think there is some from Workwell that are already in there, so.
Yeah.
You want to see them.
We have to do respiratory questionnaires every year, but this new physical screenings it's coming. So it's gonna be, it was recommended, now it's gonna be mandated. So I'm not gonna have a choice. And the mental health screenings, that's to be determined about what the requirements are. NFPA is already laid out for the physical. But we're working with a couple of businesses for that. We're hoping to do some sort of Zoom screening with the employees, so it's not too impactful to the employee. Anything else? Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Nope, thanks, Andy. All right, approve the minutes, February 26th.
Make a motion, we approve as submitted. Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Phil. All those in favor?
I do have one correction. We have Diane's name is Diane Robbins. I believe she's Dash Mogus. Yeah. Yeah, so correct. Correct. her name. Yeah. Yes.
Should they get married?
We have no committee board reports. Mr. Manager.
Yes, I've provided some material for you to take a look at in terms of possible ordinance amendments. I know that the planning board tomorrow evening has public hearing on their proposed ordinance amendments, and part of that will be to remove within their ordinance structure information related to food truck performance standards. So what I've done is I've provided to you a modification to your existing standalone ordinance addressing food truck performance standards. One of the things I think we have discovered from our last discussion on food trucks was that how did our ordinance come about, and how did it change? And if you recall back in, I think it was 1996, you had a street vendor ordinance which allowed, like dog carts and things like that, folks to park on the side of the road and provide their wares to the public. And as a result of that, I think when we saw that the food truck how it became such a popular thing now, we made amendments to our ordinance and added a few things. But one of the things we did not remove from the vendor ordinance was the standard of being, couldn't be within 200 feet of an intersection. So the ordinance, obviously it's your call. If you want to make some more changes to it, we can, but the proposal that I have in front of you would be to modify our performance standards and remove the 200 feet from street intersections from the standard. Any discussion, or do you want to wait, or? Well, the only reason I did remove it was it wasn't part of the, it was there because of the street vendor ordinance. And it became a controversial issue. If you recall, we had those issues come up. And I thought that maybe that was a way to indicate the reason it was there is because of that. However, you bring up a good point. Do we want to keep it in as a performance standard and leave our ordinance alone and not recommend any amendment to it and leave the standard there? I mean, that's something that this board certainly can debate and discuss what you want to do. But that was the why I put it in as a thought of changing it.
Have a comment or a question?
Yep.
First of all, I think we should leave it in simply because of the safety measure. And I also think we should add that any food truck application initially should have a traffic study, traffic hazard, traffic safety engineering study to go with it. So that if they had a safety study that proved that if it was within 200 feet, it wasn't a safety issue, then I'd take this out. But if they had a safety study that showed that, oh, well, there's an intersection right there and that intersection has 20 accidents a year, then I think that something for safety needs to stay in there. I mean, Route 1, any of our roads in the summertime are terrible.
So I'm just trying to get some clarity to that. So it would be your thought that the 200-foot standard should stay in there, that that in the event that an applicant brings one forward and it's an intersection, it's going to be less than 200 feet, that we give them the ability to do a traffic study and provide us additional data before this board makes a decision as to whether they're going to allow that vendor to be within that 200 feet.
Not just a traffic study, but also a safety study. I mean, the state has all of the information about accidents at different intersections. And if we did it with all intersections, it wouldn't, picking on walkers.
I'm not quite sure if you leave the 200 standard in there, I don't know, I don't think so. If that, yeah, yeah. The- Correct. Right.
Do we have any, is there any verbiage when it comes to driveways with distance and line of sight that could correspond with? You know what I mean? If we tell someone to put a driveway in for a residence, you need whatever the lineal.
There-
Yeah, I think there's
there-
a review by Public Works and then they look at that, the speed criteria based on the road, how much distance you may need, sight distance as a result of the speed on the road. So there are criteria that is used under those circumstances, yeah.
It was suggested for me to move my driveway down because of that.
Because of the site distance.
Right, and that's the thing I was gonna mention here, is I would be okay with taking that out as long as we have X amount of sight distance from the intersection. I think the key there, picking on that one particular spot, is sight distance coming out. When you come out, you can't look left.
Yeah.
It's a very short sight distance looking left.
Yeah, I know it looks like it, the reason it's there is because of what's happening there. I'd like to try to eliminate that if we can, but and discuss whether or not we think it's warranted to have that in there. It appears that the board thinks that, yeah, I think we should keep it, but is there a different standard that we can look at?
No, I personally, I think we should take it out, but you gotta meet a required sight distance
Okay,
in order to exit out. I mean, it's no different than,
would the site distance be set up on the what do they call it? There's a standard that they use and there's an abbreviation for that based on the speed of the road and so I'd have to look that up and
Yeah, and I don't
perhaps
know-
come back with a
and I don't know if
different
that,
language related to that.
and if it's tied into the amount of trip generations also, I'm not sure if it is or not, but that would be an issue there, but I mean, that's just me, but
So,
It's 100 feet for 10 miles an hour. For sight distance.
And that makes it worse. If that's 35 through there.
that's 300 feet.
Yeah,
35
350
to
feet.
350.
Yeah.
So, all right, so what I'm getting is a variety of things here. It appears, unless you guys tell me differently, that you want to have some sort of standard left in there. The performance standard should not be removed. There should be some sort of standard in terms of intersection deviation. You want me to look at additional criteria based on sight distance, based on a formula that's established by, I think it's traffic engineers or whoever may set that down. So is that what I'm hearing?
That was just me, so.
There is no traffic.
So it would leave it up to the performance standard would be there unless they can prove that the standard could be modified and still be safe. So okay. That's what you're suggesting at this point. I think it is. I think exactly what Velma's thinking about.
I don't want to throw another piece of the puzzle in this, but
That's all right.
it seems like all the food trucks end up on Route 1, which is a state road. So does the state have an additional standard that these people need to meet? In addition to ours or no?
The only standard I think the state would have, which they could provide some discretion on. We've experienced it twice now. We experienced it when they gave a permit for a driveway, an opening on Route 1 to the food truck court across from across from Bentley's, and they gave approval to these folks to use that water district opening as their access in. So their involvement has only been to provide a permit to go on from their road onto property. And I think that will be the extent of their involvement in this. Anything else, I think, will have to come from this board as to how you want to handle it. So am I hearing, just to try to keep this moving along, am I hearing that you want me to come back with, leave it in and then put some sort of language in there to indicate that in the event that a applicant can prove that safety could be rendered at less than 200 feet, that they have an opportunity to provide that data? Then you folks as a group would have to decide whether or not that's appropriate or not. Yep. Gotcha. Does that sound like a reasonable route? I can come back with some language and you guys can tear into that. Okay. The other piece was the street design and construction ordinance. There's been some requests for some modifications to that. And what I did is I provided you the ordinance and the changes were in red. So if you look at page 1 or page 3 of this document would be the definition of private street. And there's a recommendation to remove that language at this time. I don't think,
They don't want commercial, they want a private street.
I think it's legal access and lot frontage to a commercial or residential lot and residential. They're just taking out the definition of a private street. Still have private way. You still have public street.
Right, we don't really have private streets, we just have public streets and private ways.
Correct. So I think they're just removing the language. I think the next piece of this would be under, I think we have to go to 2.0 language on private ways. Go to 2.2 existing private ways.
Page 14.
Right, page 14. And what they're recommended it to be added would be the language, if a owner of the private way wishes to expand the existing roadway to serve additional lots, provided no more than 10 total lots are proposed, further review of such road may be exempt. So in other words, it would be up to the review that's being done on the by staff review on the proposal, and then there would be a review and make a decision whether or not they can exempt that or not. Instead of having engineering and, borings and all those kinds of things on a road that's never going to be a town road, it's a private road. And then we take into I think there'd be a review, take consideration how the existing road was built, who built it, and what extension to that existing road is being done. And that criteria would be taken into consideration when they use the exempt portion.
Emergency vehicle egress in and out. That would be part of the consideration.
That would still qualify, right? So they'd still have to present The road
Yeah, they would co-
construction exists, they'd have to go to the fire chief and say, we're adding 1,000 feet to this road.
Well, I think it comes under the inspection and certification piece. And what they're saying on page 17 would be to remove the word shall and put may in under 2.7.1. Private ways may be inspected under the direction of the Public Works in assistance of code office. And they may mandate consulting engineer to contracted by the town to conduct inspections if needed. So again, you're providing that to staff review to make that determination of whether or not there's a need.
They've taken out commercial completely. Says because when you get rid of private street, that visual access and lot frontage to a commercial or residential lot, and they've changed it to private way, which is only residential lots. So they've taken commercial out of here completely.
Only on the private street piece. I mean, if you look at parts of the other street design and construction standard, there's still other sections in here where folks could put commercial lots in, but would have to meet certain standards in order to do that.
Even if they wanted it to be private street for a commercial lot.
Yeah, those standards would fall under, could fall under 1.4 as part of the standard. Could fall under, let's see what else is there.
Classification of commercial streets under 155.
What were you referring that for? What were you?
That's what Velma.
Private street, it's didn't reference anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of providing access to commercial and residential, private ways and residential.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's, private street isn't referenced anywheres in here and probably nowheres else in our ordinance. That's why they're taking it out.
But there is a commercial.
I just want to make sure that if you have someone who has a commercial lot and they want to put in their own private way going to that commercial lot, if they can do that, providing they meet certain criteria, that all of a sudden it's not a case of, no, it's gotta be 50 feet wide and such and the whole thing, even though they may only be doing one or two things on that lot and they want to keep it private.
So those are the standards, tainted deviations that came down from staff review, I believe, which included the planner, code, public works, as part of their process of trying to expedite certain parts of the standard that seem to be bogged down in a couple cases.
Yeah, me too.
I think they could went out there. There's gotta be some standard you gotta look to. You can't just leave it to.
Well,
I'm talking about whether you have further review or not, that may be exempt, but who's making that call and on what basis?
that call be made by the authority reviewing it, which would be, in most of these cases, staff review. Or
If some complaints, somebody does get review, somebody doesn't. Why?
well, yeah, I think you would, but and you're going to have to be prepared to be able to justify that. I think there are certain contractors that we all know that do quality work, and there isn't any objections to perhaps the work that they're doing, and observation will tell you that. We have other contractors where it would be highly skeptical whether or not they're going, and I think that's why the may piece is there as opposed, so they could extend that authority. And yeah, granted, you're going to create maybe some complaints that would be coming this way.
Maybe you could, at the end of that, just say refer to 2.4.1,
Under which piece?
what Tom just referenced. So 2.2, where
Okay,
we're disputing the may. So maybe at the end, it just says, refer to 2.4.1, and then and then that in greater detail says exempt private ways shall be approved by staff review committee prior to the issuance of any building or road construction permit.
so put it, refer to 2.4.1.
I don't know, does that automatically initiate the
Well,
staff review?
So there'll be no exempt. because you-
yeah,
Right, so it's almost-
you're
yeah.
taking the exempt away. I think what we're doing under existing private ways is that you're looking at a piece of road that's already been there. And instead of having them go through an entire process, that you're saying, yes, that road has been there, has been met these standards, and we're not going to allow them or require them to do any further review.
You want to do a public hearing on this at some point in time, right?
Oh, yeah. If this board wishes to leave it to make these modifications,
Right, this is our.
and, if you need further clarity, obviously I can get the powers to be that suggested these changes to come in and talk to you at greater length as a result of them.
Can we look at 1.6.1 on page 5, the very bottom? On private ways, that's costing people thousands of dollars. And I've been told some people have paid up to $10,000 to get that professional engineering done for a private road. I think that's a little much. We could find a way to reword some of that.
This is except for.
It says on the 1.6, except for private
Except for
ways.
private ways, right?
So it shouldn't be a requirement, Phil, if it's a private way, to have to go through that process.
Right. So any street that's done has to go through that, but if it's a private way, it doesn't have to go through that.
I understand that on public street, but private street shouldn't have to do all of that.
Any further discussion? I'm sorry. What's the initial thoughts? Should we not change it? We change it? Want further clarity? Want to talk to some more people that have made this recommendation? Wait for a public hearing to discuss it? I'm up for any options that you may have.
I'd be curious as to why they changed 271. Why? I would think that we would, on a private way, we would want the public works director to look at it. We would want the code enforcement to look at it. There's public safety that could be involved here, and to me, they should look at it. It's not may, I think they should look at it. They should be forced to look at them.
So your argument is to leave it as shall and remove the may. So that way, those inspections and certifications for private way will
Yes.
be inspected by Public Works. And the Public Works Director may mandate a consulting engineer to assist in that. I think
I'm just kind of curious why they changed it to May. What would be the reason why they,
I think just trying to streamline the process. I mean, we've had a couple that have taken longer than I think they needed really to take. And so this is an effort to try to minimize that as best we can.
I get that, try to streamline things, but still, we want to make sure that emergency vehicles can get in and, you know, all of that stuff, so. I don't know.
Dan, this discussion we had, put this ordinance together,
Yeah,
that's why we did that.
Okay. So you're of the opinion as well to leave it as shall? Okay. How about the request of removal of the private street definition? Any objections to that?
as long as, I know it's not in this document, but as long as private street doesn't show up anywhere else in any ordinance, then it doesn't make sense to leave it there. And, do you know, Keith, if, in the, if we have a private street definition in the land use ordinance?
And I'd have to look.
I don't recall. Because to me, it certainly doesn't belong here. There's no reference to private street anywheres in here.
Okay.
So there's no reason why it should be there.
Okay.
If there's a reference in the land use ordinance, then there should be a definition for private street in the land use ordinance. Not here.
Yeah, I just don't want to see us mess up some of our commercial.
No, and I don't think it does, Velma, because that's the only place that it's mentioned.
I think it isn't here. It should be, like you said, I agree with you. That it should, whoops, it should be somewhere.
So we're back to the other request under 2.2, page 14, existing private ways. And the piece that they are proposing to add. And that had that exempt piece on there. And your feelings on that one way or the other?
Some language, some reason why somebody would be exempt and somebody isn't. But that's based on information supplied, or information known by staff.
Yep.
I don't.
Okay.
Want to tie it into some reason. That's
Okay. Okay. We will ask that question and try to get that answer. We'll continue to work through this slowly then.
We went through this slowly when we put this out.
Yeah, we did. But, sometimes you gotta revisit it from time to time.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I think
Yep.
it was a good thing.
So that's all I have for right now on that particular issue. My next piece, Mr. Chairman, is as you all know, we have a resignation of one of our employees. Deputy Treasurer Lisa Denner will be leaving our employment as of the 22nd of the month, which will be in a couple more weeks. We've gone ahead and advertised for the position. I've had 3 applicants. Out of the 3, I have one that has municipal experience as a treasurer. So I will be interviewing that person on Wednesday of this week to determine whether or not it fits our needs. So I'll keep you posted. I'm a little surprised that I don't have more applicants. When we did the when we did the tax collector position, I had 50 plus applications. Now I've had 3 for deputy treasurer's position, so I'm not sure what has changed in the landscape to, I guess, I don't know. So anyway, I'll keep you apprised as we move through that process and see how it goes. Yeah, certainly come in and see her.
Just so you know, in the land use regulations, it has private road, a private way, and private way. There's no, under the actual definition section, there's no private street. Now, if it's somewhere else written somewhere, I wouldn't see it, but under the definitions, it only has private road and private way.
Do either of those mention lot frontage to a commercial or residential lot?
Hang on, can't do anything without my eyes. The private road only says a private way. And then the private way is a privately owned road within a 50-foot right-of-way constructed to standards specified in the street designs and construction ordinances and providing legal vehicular access to lots lacking required street frontage on a public street. That's what it says.
You want to touch on transfer station?
I do.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, I spoke with Terry this morning. Over the weekend, he got a call that one of the compactors was not operating. So it happens to be our oldest compactor. As he was traveling up, I guess it started to work again, but it didn't last the day. So by the end of the day, it was down again. From what I understand, and this has happened to us in the past, these motors for these compactors work very well on 3-phase power. We have to put that system in that reduces it from 3-phase to 1-phase, and evidently these phase converters put a burden on these electric motors to the effect that they actually burn out. So this particular compactor, if I recall, we've already put one motor in it in the past, and now we're down to, perhaps either doing that or doing something else. So right now it's down. It's anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000 to put a new motor onto this compactor, which in my view doesn't make any sense to do at this particular stage in the game. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to put one of our open tops there. And so the recyclables can go into the open top. And when it's full, that can go down the road. And then we'll keep the existing compactor operating on our trash. But it brings up another piece here. And one of the things that we talked about as we're going through the budget was one of my proposals to you would be to purchase a new compactor and 2 roll-offs, one open top, the other one another roll-off that is enclosed that would be attached to that compactor. The cost that we have right now is a full budget amount of $50,550 to do that work. I would make a strong suggestion that we may want to, because of the situation we're in now, that we may want to expedite the purchase of that. As you recall, I was requesting that funding come from fund balance in order to cover that cost. So it would be my thought that we could hold a special town meeting, request the funding to be allocated out of fund balance to cover the cost to put those systems in place now prior to our annual town meeting. So that would take, obviously, your authority, and it's my intention to talk to the budget board about that tomorrow night at their meeting as well, which you'll also be involved in. So gaining thoughts, what are your thoughts? I don't think we should put $2,000 or $3,000 into that motor, but I'm up for suggestions if you can come up with a better plan.
Do they make a non-three-phase compactor? No.
I think they have that phase converter that goes on. So to answer that, I think there's a difference in the motor. I'd have to look at the quotes that we got. I think we got quotes that provided that single phase piece. So, yeah.
What's the smallest size three-phase generator that's available? Could we, I'm just throwing stuff out, could we purchase a three-phase generator and run the generator just when we run that for the longevity of these things?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You know, when we're in operation up there, turn a generator on and run off power there to run three-phase.
What's that big generator that Public Works already has on the trailer? Do they still have that?
It's 100 kW. It certainly would do the work. I thought we sent it to surplus. I think it's gone. I think we sent it to surplus to be sold. Matter of fact, I think the guy to the right may have bought it. Of you.
You certainly wouldn't need 100 kW to
No,
run the
it-
motors, but it would have to be a three-phase.
Right, our 50 kW that we just bought for Public Works was about just under $30,000. So, but that does include, we still have to have the units. So, not sure if it's going to be, it would bring us any additional cost to us as a result of it.
Well,
So,
I mean, if we know that we have an issue with the phase converters and we're just gonna turn around and buy another compactor with a three-phase, now, you know, down the road, we're gonna be in the same situation, so I think we should be looking ahead, to try to
all right, so
mitigate that.
your suggestion is perhaps in the future, we do something, we know we're not going to get three-phase power down that road.
No.
So.
Either that or to Jason's point, make sure that we have a motor that's capable, that's not three-phase. You know,
But I don't think it takes care of my problem right now unless Jason's suggestion was to try to get a single phase motor to put on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
it'd be a little cheaper. I don't know.
I'm sure it'd be cheaper. But it would be, and this is just my view, putting a Band-Aid on on the thing that we're going to change. Here, hopefully, pretty quickly, but that still hasn't been determined by this board or the budget board. I guess I'm pushing the determination.
So counting backwards, what's the earliest we could have a special town meeting? We need
All we need is 7 days.
7 days, right? Yeah,
We could hold it,
like next Wednesday.
well, we could hold it at your next meeting
True.
if we wanted to. That's what we've done with some of the specials that we've run before, is that we've had it in the beginning of the meeting, done the business, and then moved on to the rest of our meeting. I wouldn't do it at your next, the 25th. I'd probably do it sometime in April. That's if you wish to go down that road.
How soon could we have the new?
I asked Terry that question today. He's going to try to find that answer for us. Sometimes when we get that close to town meeting, some folks think we're trying to do something that trying to push something through, and that's not the case here. I think we have a situation where something needs to be done, and this is a solution to a problem.
Well, the intent was to take it out of fund balance all along anyway.
That is correct.
All right, so we'll talk about this tomorrow night. Moving on, so we got a action on the food truck renewal.
Make a motion, we accept as presented.
I'll second that.
Phil did bring up a good point about her insurance.
Yes,
Yeah.
we noted it too. Thank you, Phil. Yep. We provided notice to Mr. Meyer, and we'll provide notice to Mrs. Spofford and the same thing.
That would be a condition of a motion.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
Motion by Dan with a condition.
Second.
Second by Velma. Any more discussion? Tom, you good? Yeah, all those in favor? All right, we got a payable warrant.
So moved.
Motion by Velma,
Second.
second by Dan. All those in favor? Please count away. We might have to start making a requirement, Keith, that the food truck applications have to bring samples on
I like that.
new applications, renewals.
I could go for ice cream tonight.
I had a couple of other things just, I gave you notice on the York County Budget Committee caucus that will be coming up on April 10th. If any of you are interested, I think I provided the letter as well as the vacants, kind of interesting. There isn't many people that are wishing to serve on those boards anymore, unfortunately. And the other thing I provided you was I had an email that was forwarded to me from the planning office reference to a gentleman and his, it's either his significant other or his wife that wishes to look at the possibility of putting raised bed gardens, fruit trees and that kind of thing as a community garden here around the building or on the walkway heading out towards the building. And I don't know if that's something that you want to consider, want to give more thought to. It appears from the email that they're willing to do all the groundwork and trying to get a community garden operating and getting donations to get it going. But the same token is it's the property that you have authority over. So I'm not sure where you want to go with it.
What happens to the fruits of the labor? Like, do they donate it to somebody or is it is whoever works in the garden?
I think that's, I don't know how those community gardens work. I've never been associated with them, but I think that's how they are, except for Dan. I think Dan would sneak in and try to grab some vegetables as he gets a chance, but
I got a vegetable picker on my drone.
oh, you do? So I think that's how they work, is once the garden gets up, you have a piece of the garden and you cultivate it and you work it and I think there's donations that are made. I'm not quite sure on it. I can get some more information if it's something that you would like to expand town property to be used for.
I think it's nice. They just want to make sure that there's something in writing that if, they're responsible for cleaning it up, if all of a sudden, no more trees or they don't grow or they don't just leave the planters there and it ends up looking like crap. And then now Terry's responsible to clean all of that up.
Well, I certainly look at the logistics of it all because we don't have any water out there. So somebody's going to have to run hoses out there and, it's over in the corner here. So they'd have to run it all the way over there. So whether they roll those hoses up at the end of their busy day of watering vegetables, I'm not sure. So, yeah. So it's not that I'm opposed to it. I just don't know the logistics of it.
Can you have them come in to a meeting and just present us with a
Sure.
plan? I don't
I can.
object to it at all, but
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anybody have anything else? All right, anybody have anything else? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved at 8:05
Motion
PM.
by Dan. Seconded by Velma. All those in favor?